We are talking about, of course, the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, who is now, she's active. She's doing it. It's happening. I know it gets a little confusing of who's been confirmed, who hasn't been confirmed. If you're not paying complete attention, she is serving right now as your Attorney General. Pam Bondi been sworn in. And as we've seen in the last few days, she has gotten to work and has been part of launching new task force, some that are protecting Christians, some that are against weaponization of the government, and some that have supported or gone against sort of the anti-Semitic bias that's happening in the media right now. Will, there's a lot happening, and her new department is going at it.
This is a really big step forward in trying to clean up the DOJ and the weaponization that we've seen out of Merrick Garland's Department of Justice over the last 4 years. But this is big news. So one of these task forces is going to be the Weaponization Working Group.
Yep.
And this is from a memo that was sent to all DOJ staff from the Attorney General, and it gets into the bullet points of what they're targeting.
Yeah, I want to start with just the subject of it. Like, imagine like the subject of your email. It says, restoring the integrity and credibility of the Department of Justice. The fact that that is a headline, that they have to do it, like the Department of Justice has been a defunct brand for the last few years, and now we got to restore, rebuild, bring in new staff. I mean, it is essentially what's happening.
Right. And when it gets into what the working group will actually do, it's remarkable because it hits a lot of the points that we've talked about and fought against from the Biden administration over the last 4 years. The FBI suggested that certain Catholic religious practices were affiliated with violent extremism and criminal activity. They want to investigate criminal prosecutions under the FACE Act, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, for nonviolent pro-life protest activity, and the retaliatory targeting and, in some instances, criminal prosecution of legitimate whistleblowers. You know, we represented whistleblowers. We have been fighting for the non-criminal prosecution and no prosecution of those that are simply using their freedom of speech to protest abortion, as well as the egregious memorandum that was targeting Catholics because they are Catholic and saying that they could be domestic terrorists. It's all right there. She's getting to work, and this is what we voted for. This weaponization of the federal government doesn't stop at going after people that have been elected that are political enemies. It also goes to very far in stopping the weaponization against average Americans like we three here or any other person that happens to have conservative or Christian beliefs. And when you look at some of these things, like they're going to examine the memorandum the FBI had targeting what they called radical traditionalist Catholics, the ways that the FBI and the Justice Department went after investigating parents that were concerned about their children, and so they spoke at a public school board meeting, or criminal prosecutions and how outrageous they were. We remember that man who protected his son in front of an abortion protest that was raided by a SWAT team, just a normal, average person who stands up, uses his First Amendment speech to speak out against abortion, raided by a SWAT team, charged with a felony of the FACE Act, and then eventually acquitted. They're going to look into those type of prosecutions and the retaliatory targeting against whistleblowers, which we know is so important to actually keep the Department of Justice in check. This Department of Justice will have whistleblowers too that they probably won't like, but they're also showing we know that's the right process. That's how this works, to have accountability in government. I just want to get your take on that as well, of the lengths that it's going to go to protect Americans that aren't elected officials. This is not just about politics and our favorite candidate. This is about everyday people and their constitutional protections.
Why is the FBI focused on religious observances when we have a constitutional right to the free exercise of religion? So I think at the end of the day, what this particular working group will find is that they will find even more massive interference by the FBI in the lives of average Americans. Keep in mind, as you correctly point out, Will, the FBI went after parents who basically protested, perhaps vigorously, at Board of Education meetings. We used to live in Northern Virginia. They arrested a parent who was upset because his daughter was raped in school. Why wouldn't a parent be upset? Yeah. And he was charged.
He was the one charged. Well, it's ridiculous, but thankfully we have some new people in charge and things can get done.
This is a working group she's establishing called the Weaponization Working Group. It is in direct response because of the executive order of ending the weaponization of the federal government, which President Trump signed on Inauguration Day, January 20th. And Professor Hutchison, this goes to really the heart of many of the complaints the American people have had with the system over the last, more than just 5 years, because you think of the impeachment, you think of the Mueller probe and things of that nature, where we've seen the government overstep, waste taxpayer money on politically charged investigations that go nowhere, but at the end of the day, they also damage the reputation not only of the Justice Department, but of the United States as a whole. And what this working group is examining, it's a laundry list of complaints that ACLJ supporters and the American people in general have had against the Department of Justice for going on close to a decade now.
The Department of Justice has been engaged in a 9-year campaign to either prevent Donald Trump from taking office in 2016, or alternatively, they've been engaged in a program and policy of weakening and hampering the administration, really the administration of justice. And so who could forget, for instance, the Alvin Bragg trial? Basically a 34-count indictment, basically bootstrapping what? Misdemeanor claims, state misdemeanor claims, into, in essence, a federal election felony charge, leading ultimately to a jury finding Donald Trump guilty, with the possibility, didn't happen, but there was a possibility that he would have to serve a jail time. But Alvin Bragg worked with Matthew Colangelo, a Department of Justice attorney, in order to bring these charges. We also have Fani Willis in Atlanta working with the White House. We have had Jack Smith bringing January 6th charges, essentially, in Washington, D.C., a classified documents trial.
These are all things we want to forget, Harry, but I understand.
Yeah, all of these cases. But in addition, of course, we have had the FBI doing what? Bringing FISA warrants against individuals who are affiliated with Donald Trump without probable cause. That is a violation, arguably, of the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution.